In this video, we'll be talking about the upcoming altcoin season. Now, before you get mad, right, hear me out. I know what you're thinking. We don't even know if the cycle is still on. We could have topped. Bear market could have begun. How can this guy be talking about an altcoin season? That is all more than fair. And I agree, right? We don't know. That said, though, I would argue that a time like now is exactly when you want to be talking about an altcoin season. Bitcoin has basically been doing nothing for these past couple weeks. Everyone is getting bored. But for me, I am playing it exactly like how I did in this range. Bitcoin was going sideways, doing nothing for over 8 months. And yet I was consistently uploading videos, still bullish on the overall markets, and there was a lot of knowledge and insight to gain during that time. I feel like it's quite similar right now. Seems like a lot of YouTubers are now starting to get a little bit gun shy about saying what's what in this range. I admit, at face value, it is difficult to tell. I am still bullish. I still do not think the top is in, and I think a lot of people are looking for clarity. And so these are my thoughts on what I think is happening, what I think will happen, and the altcoin season I think that will happen. So before you comment altcoin season, what are you talking about, right? Now you know why. And I would argue that when we are going up, right, the animal spirits take over. No one's really going to listen. And the reality is that once we do pump, right, I mean, a lot of people are going to mess it up yet again. They'll be in the same exact position that they are right now, even with another pump. So that is why I think it's time to lock in when everyone else is checking out. So, as always, make sure you're subscribed for more content like this. But let's now get into it. Now, the first thing I want to touch up on or address is this idea of the Fed needing to cut rates end QT and then start QE. And only then can we get a normal cycle, altcoin season, stuff like that. Okay, fair enough. To an extent, I agree. Who am I to say that that isn't the case? In fact, I would say yes. We need those things. That said, though, in my opinion, a lot of that is now being said as cope because we may need those things, yes, but Bitcoin already went from 16 to 108,000 without any of that. In fact, interest rates were rising during this time and paused for a very long time. It's only now recently that, we even had a cut. Furthermore, we already had two pretty good altcoin runs. Yes, it wasn't a full-blown altcoin season, but we had two periods now in this cycle where you could have made life-changing gains. And I would even argue that a lot of you may have made those gains, paper gains, and unrealized gains. Maybe they didn't hit your targets, right, that you had originally. They were probably definitely life changing. That first run that lasted up until March 2024, and then the 2 month run we had in November and December. So to me, I just find it funny that now all of a sudden, because people didn't get those gains, they're now associating it all with the fact that, the macro isn't the best. If you look at the stock market, it's been up only since 2022. And whether this was a bear market or some sort of elongated correction, right? We've had a bull run. And the bigger question is it still intact? So, this idea of needing the Fed to do certain things and the macro getting better, you look at trueflation, it's well under control, right? We had a spike up recently, but the argument is that the Fed is behind the curve. And so, to me, and I'm not sure if a lot of you recall, for a large part of 2023, my whole thing was the macro is not going to be the best for this cycle. And yet assets, risk assets, were still going to go up because of this idea of climbing the wall of worry, right? The quote unquote Goldilocks zone. Because markets are programmed to go up. Bitcoin goes up. It needs a reason to go down, right? It doesn't need a reason to go up. And so to touch up on that bear market idea, in the last bear market, right? Right over here, we still had a good amount of coins running in Q1 2022. Bitcoin was around 50% down. You know when the consensus became that we're in a bear market? Around here, when Bitcoin broke 30K. So for a bear market, right, it's not like a lot of people are ready for it. Many get blindsided by it because they expect things to keep going up and then Bitcoin takes such a hit that they realize, oh, wait a minute, it might be over. This time, we didn't have that whatsoever. Many are risk off, many are calling it quits. If it is the bear market, fair enough, but it would, I think, be the highest amount of people I've seen ever be able to call it before it really spills over, if that makes sense. And so, do we need lower inflation, rate cuts, QE, stuff like that? Okay, sure, fair enough. But, and it was the exact same thing I said in this zone, that once we pump, every single narrative that was talked about in this zone gets instantly just erased from the memory. Same thing now. If we pump and make all-time highs next month, 2 months from now, this whole idea of QE, QT, you best believe no one is going to care. And there will be a lot of opportunity at that time too. So that is why I feel like generally you don't want to negate those things completely. Definitely not. But I've always felt that, we're in this Goldilocks sort of cycle where things are just going to keep going up until something big happens. And, who's to say that, for example, if we do get rate cuts starting in June, for example, that we've found some sort of low here, potentially lower, and then we come ripping out of it. And then when we get those rate cuts, that marks a top, something like that. I think all of that is on the table. And so, in my opinion, quite frankly, I think the way to go about it is to definitely acknowledge it, take it in, add it to your knowledge base, whatever. But don't get too caught up in these narratives where when we go to the upside, whenever we do, it's the same thing. You don't want to get too bullish either. Now, in reference and to this idea of an altcoin season, and it kind of has to do with what we just talked about, but I'm starting to see this idea come out that we do not have enough money to cause an altcoin season, that there's too many altcoins and we can't get a market-wide altcoin season. If we look at total, I think we have enough money within crypto to cause an altcoin season when it does occur. I don't think it's a matter of money, and I'll show you guys what I mean in a second. Right now, total is at 2.7 billion. We topped at 3, right? Got to as much as 3.7, and if we haven't topped, there's a very decent chance we get higher. Now, targets coming into this cycle for total were always around, they were pretty high, right? Like 8 to 10. I always thought that was kind of a long shot, but let's even say we top at just 5, which I think, to be fair, right now, a lot of people would take. But let's say the cycle is normal, we finish higher, top is not in, but we still have a lackluster finish, if that makes sense. So the top is at 5, so only 70% higher than the previous high. 2017 to 2021 was over 200% higher. In my opinion, I think there is more than enough money in that situation for an altcoin season, and I will show you guys what I mean. Now, here's the chart for XRP, the strongest altcoin right now in crypto. And the pump from 50 cents to $3 caught many people off guard. No one really positioned for this pump. It was either people holding XRP for a pump like this or those that faded XRP. No one really got into XRP at this time anticipating this pump. So it caught a lot of people off guard. Now, I would argue that it's still not done, right? If the top is not in, I think this ends up between $5 and $10. But this pop of XRP was not random per se, and it actually has less to do with XRP. USD, that is, and more to do with XRP Bitcoin, the chart. Now, if you look at this chart, it's still pretty much dead. Barely anything, barely any type of revival. All we had was this orange box. That was enough to cause that pump on XRP. And so this all brings us to Bitcoin dominance. Now, the biggest run we had so far was from October 23 to March 24. And the altcoin run we had during this time was greater than what we had recently. Would you care to guess where that October 2023 to March 2024 time period comes in relation to this Bitcoin dominance chart? It'd be this box right here. So we chopped, essentially. All dominance did was chop, go sideways. And we had crypto at that time, altcoins at that time, like Tau, go from $50 to $750, while dominance was chopping. Crypto like Render went from $1 to $13. Solana, one of the biggest crypto right now, did a 10x, going from 20 to 200, while dominance was chopping. Injective doing a 10x. So we saw pretty big mid caps do pretty incredible gains, and all dominance did at that time was chop. And then in that run from November to December, really only a 2-month run last year, this was what we saw in dominance. A pretty decent drop, to be fair, but absolutely nothing compared to the drops we saw in the past, right? 2017 and 2021. Now, as it stands, dominance continues to trend up, right? The top could be in, but it may not be in, whatever it is. And Bitcoin USD continues making highs and dominance keeps going up with it, then we'd be frankly in the same exact situation we're in right now. Now, then the big debate, obviously, is will dominance break down? Will it drop? I think the answer is a conservative yes, right? We don't even have to talk about new lows. In fact, I don't think we'll get new lows. And I understand the big argument to this would be ETF money. Okay, fair enough. I would, however, argue that dominance will still drop to an extent. So I think the ETF variable, right? Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. In fact, let's say it has made an impact. So this orange box that I have, let's get rid of it. If dominance just gets down to 50%, that is going to cause biggest run in alts we've seen so far this cycle. And we've seen two pretty fat ones. Now, if you're still going to say that that still won't happen, right? ETF money has too much of an impact on all of this, then fair enough. I think that may be a different argument then, right? Because then you're saying that it is going to be up only and it has been up only. But are you willing to bet that this is going to stay the case forever? If you do, that's fair. Right? Again, that is a separate argument. That said, though, in crypto, there's always switches that happen, right? A shift that happens. You cannot get too comfortable and content on a specific idea because in crypto, traditionally, it does eventually reverse. And you know what? If the cycle ends like this, if it is over, fair enough. We didn't get an altcoin season. We didn't get a breakdown in dominance. That is also possible. And if you're leaning that way, I can't argue against it because again, I think it could go either way. That said though, you better go risk off then in that case. Or relatively soon. You still can't be in crypto because if you're going to continue to be in crypto, but you still think things have changed and that it's only a Bitcoin type of thing, then if you're not going to go risk off now, when are you going to go risk off? Because it's only going to get worse, right? Prices are only going to go lower. Or you better be full port in Bitcoin. So whether you agree with me or not, if you're holding any type of altcoins, you are indirectly saying, we get this. And that is how you position correctly. You have an idea. So let's say your idea is dominance will not break down. That is totally fair and credible. But then your actions need to match that, right? You can't have a disparity between the two. And so that is why I'm confident that an altcoin season will still occur. We may have to wait. I know it's been really tough for a lot of you. Honestly, this may extend until maybe Q1 next year. I wouldn't be surprised. But if this is still at play, and has not resolved itself, then you cannot call it yet. Can't say this cycle is different. You can't say it's the same because these conditions have not even been met yet. So if you are confused and looking for some guidance on what to do for this upcoming altcoin season, what alts to get into, what I think will outperform, how to position accordingly. I think with these dumps in altcoins, we're getting some incredible risk reward trades. I do have a private and exclusive Discord that you can join that answers all those questions. The altcoins that we're looking at, why we're looking at them, when we're buying, stuff like that. There's also the version where you can have a one-on-one call with me if you're really confused or just looking for any type of portfolio help, although spots for that are limited. There is a link though in the description. Check that out if you're lost, but we will leave it at that. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you hopefully soon.